Hi, everyone. What you're going to hear is part of a larger conversation that started in episode 104 about the Battle of Lepanto. But before we get to that, I just wanted to remind you that we do have an online retreat coming up in November. It's possible for you to join for free. We'll meet online for 4 Tuesday evenings in November. So it's a great time to come meet Father McCarthy, ask him all your questions, and just meet some other Christians who are exploring these ideas of war and peace in the church and gospel nonviolence. So I really hope you can attend and join us. All right, here is the second part of our conversation.
As I approach my 20th year, everything's coming together. The boy's becoming a man. The dreams I've shaped are close at hand. Well, ready or not, world, here I come.
I was gonna bring that up, and one more little anecdote that I've heard you tell before when I think we were speaking privately, and I don't know if you want to talk about this publicly, but this line from Lepanto and this rosary praying that leads to victory. You were told me once about this priest in the 60s, 70s that you were kind of in touch with, and he got kind of interested in you, and he led these rosary crusades, and he had a TV show.
Oh,
And
sure. Pat Payton.
yeah, which
Oh, Pat was an international star as far as a priest. Yeah.
I never knew
He
about.
dwarfed Billy Graham. Yeah.
Do you want to tell that story about like your involvement with him and like how all of a sudden he kind of dropped off the face of the earth? You thought he was going to kind of like help you, and then, but
Yeah.
he led these rosaries, and I think the CIA was involved in all that again,
Yeah,
using.
it's a very yeah, all right. So when I was teaching at Notre Dame and I was director of the program for the study and practice of nonviolence at Notre Dame,
Yeah.
he was a Holy Cross priest. Holy Cross is the order that runs Notre Dame. And so a Holy Cross priest by the name of John something or another, who had heard me speak, who had seen what we're doing and so forth and so on, who was retired, but he's very simpatico. And he said, this is something, in order to get it out there, you should talk to Father Payton about it.
Father
Now,
Payton.
Father Payton, his famous line was, family that lives together, the family that prays together, stays together. That was his line. And everyone knew it, and I knew it since childhood. Family that prays together, stays together. And it's true, too. It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And so he contacted Pat Payton for me. I didn't ask him to. He did it. And then I got a note from Pat Payton and say that he was going to be in Chicago on such and such a date at the Hilton Hotel. Would I come and see him? And so I thought, well, it's a way to get something out there, because he had television programs on every day of one form or another. The Family Crusade, the Family Prayer, the Family Rosary Crusade, you name it, And he had a big, what do you call it, media operation in Hollywood, and he knew everyone in Hollywood.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
you said he was like Bing Crosby's chaplain or
Bing
something.
Crosby, he knew everyone, and he was the real. So I said, sure, because I thought this is a way to get something about nonviolence out there.
Yeah.
So I went up there to the Hilton Hotel. He told me later that Conrad Hilton had given him free room and board at any Hilton hotel in the world whenever he wanted it.
Wow. Okay.
He knew people.
Yeah.
And so we went up. I brought three students with me.
And this would be like a big break for you.
Big break.
Huge.
Big break. This guy knew media, and he knew marketing, and he had all assembled a support team around him and everything else, And so I went up with these three students who were hippies, bedraggled as the world was in 1969 and 69, I guess.
Were you bedraggled?
Oh, no. In those days, when I taught at Notre Dame in the 60s, I wore a three-piece suit.
You did?
I was a lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah, you see the pictures of me in those days. No, three-piece suit.
Nice.
No.
You
Had
kept
none
it
of that.
classy. Kept it classy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because the 60s that people know and talk about began about 65 or 66.
Yeah.
Before that, you were still back in the 50s. And
Oh,
that's where I grew up.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what normal. And of course, in law school was way behind. And, so that was how I used to dress,
Mhm.
So I did. Anyway, I was not bedraggled. I was a presentable person.
Yeah.
But they were hippies, huh?
Yeah.
Uh, Draft resistors, that sort of business. Eh?
And how old were you compared to them? Were you like 27 or something? And they were like
At that time, I would have been, when I met Pat, I would have been 28,
okay.
and they would have been 19 and 20.
Okay. Yeah.
I brought him up, and we got to his room, 11th floor, and he answered the door. Most gracious man, huh?
Hmm.
And he had an Irish brogue because he was born and brought up in Ireland and came here, He and his brother were ordained Holy Cross priests and so forth. And he has quite a history of recovering from death-like illnesses and dedicating himself to Mary, huh?
Mhm.
And the Rosary. And so he invited us into the room, and this is what the first thing he said. He said, "Oh my goodness, who are these young folks here?"
Yeah.
I said, "These are three of my students from Notre Dame." He said, "Oh, what beautiful children." He said, "What beautiful, beautiful boys." And he says, "You're so blessed going to Notre Dame. Let me tell you, I graduated from there," he says, "years ago, but you're so blessed that God taking care of you, bringing you to Notre Dame and making you all so handsome. We got to kneel down and say a decade of rosary to thank God for that." He did right there. And these three hippies, they're kneeling down, saying a decade of the rosary for him and me.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
and then we get up and he always carried the rosary in his hand. Always carried the rosary in his hand. And just let me close that little section with the parentheses.
Yeah.
When we left the Chicago Hilton, with the guys, not one of them thought he was inauthentic. Not one of them thought he was a faker.
Okay. He was authentic. Yeah.
He was legitimate.
Yeah.
And so he asked, "How can I help you? How can you?"
Mhm.
And he's telling me how he could get Bing Crosby and his wife, whatever his name is, I forget what her name was, to participate in this, and and he got all kinds of things, and so, but he said we've got to have script, He said I could get the time, he said, but I can get commercial time. I mean, time for commercials on television, he said, but
Or gospel nonviolence?
no, he didn't say that. He said
Oh,
I can
okay.
get for nonviolence.
Nonviolence.
Nonviolence, Christian nonviolence. I didn't use gospel nonviolence at
Okay.
that time. So
Yeah.
Christian nonviolence, and he said, I can get commercial time on television.
Yeah.
He said maybe in a minute, 30 seconds, he said, but I can get it. He said, because there was such a thing at that time that they had to give so much, the networks had to give so much time to nonprofits.
Oh, okay.
And the way they usually did this is 3:00 in the morning,
Yeah.
to put on, something.
Yeah.
But anyway, he said, I can, I know how to do it. He said, but he said, we gotta have something to give. I've got to have scripts to give me some idea of what we're doing. He said 30 minutes, a minute at the most. So I went back to Notre Dame and wrote and got from others 40 half-minute scripts, 30-second scripts.
Okay. Yeah. You just churned them out.
Turned them out.
Yeah.
And I sent them to him. And then that summer, this is the summer of 69 now, I go out to Los Angeles to see him in Hollywood.
Does he
And
introduce you to Bing Crosby?
Huh?
Does he introduce you to Bing Crosby?
No. I met him in his office, in his studio, and his whole project there that was a media center
Yeah.
for Family Rosary and stuff. And we talked. He was happy with the scripts, you know.
Maybe we should explain what the family rosary was. Did we explain that?
Oh, Family Rosary Crusade was Pat Payton's Pat Payton's work for all his life to get families, Catholic or Protestant, to say the rosary. Because
Okay.
the rosary was for him, the poor man and the working man's real prayer that they had access to.
Okay.
They didn't, this is something, and he would give examples like, you can be down eating your lunch in a sewer because that's where you work, and you can say the rosary a decade. Is
Okay.
that,
And he
it
was
was a
on
simple,
TV. He was on
huh?
TV. He was on TV every night or something, or what? He was on.
Pat Payton ran rallies, open air rallies
Okay.
that would dwarf anything Trump has ever done.
Oh, okay. So this, okay. So they,
Open air rallies,
okay.
hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, all over the world.
I'm trying to
And
figure out when it started.
hmm,
I'm trying to find out when it started.
Family Rosary for Pat Payton, yeah.
It would have been like
Family Rosary Crusade. And
that,
so,
that was happening in the 50s. Like in the,
yeah, and it's going, I'm in the 60s now, huh?
okay, but he was doing that in the 50s.
Oh,
And
he was doing that way back. He's established.
yeah,
He's
okay, maybe
established.
he's going even back to the 40s.
He could very well. I think he was ordained in 42. I don't remember
Oh,
exactly,
right. And 1947 was when they pioneered this whole Rosary Crusade idea.
That's right.
So this had been
That
going
makes
on
all
for a
this.
long time. Okay, okay.
So that's what I'm entering into.
That's huge. Yeah. Okay.
Competent people, competent man, religious man, sincere man, good man,
Yeah.
you know? And and he was just enthused about the nonviolence. It made sense to him.
Yeah.
And Mary doesn't want violence and so forth and so on, and peace. Mary wants peace, peace in the family, peace in the world. We pray to Mary for peace,
Mhm.
He was really enthused and he thought this. So I sent him some scripts and he sent me back quickly a form to sign that handed over legally these scripts to his corporation, Family Rosary Crusade, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I thought, well, that's the way the world works, and he has to work in the world and so forth and so on. And then so that would have been that would have been, oh gee whiz, that would have been like when I sent those out, I sent them out like early in 1970 to him, like January or something. I sent them out and signed the paper, sent it back, and they never heard from him again.
You met with him in Hollywood, gave him the scripts.
No, I did. I went and wrote the scripts, then gave him the scripts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he sent the thing to me to sign that handed it over to him, all of them,
Yeah.
unconditionally. And that's fine. I sent it back and they never heard from him again.
Hmm.
Never heard from him again. And that was early 1970, somewhere early
Like
1970.
you'd reach out to him and he wouldn't answer you? Like,
No, I didn't do that. I figured this is a big job to put on a video.
yeah.
It's going on national television, even 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. And he had to get people and so forth. And I thought in time he'll do it,
Hmm.
but never happened, and never heard from him. And then I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It was before the NFL, or at the time of the NFL, there was also a football league called the AFL,
Okay.
American Football League. And it had really good players. And it was so competitive with the NFL on Sundays, they eventually merged. That's how good it was, huh? And the
Okay.
people were in it. And the people who put it together had money, so they
Yeah.
could, Okay, so they had network television following it. Now, my memory may be off a little bit here,
Mm-hmm.
but I was looking at an AFL game, and my remembrance is it was and I may be wrong on this, was the Heidi game.
Haiti game.
Heidi. You know Heidi from the story,
Yeah.
yeah.
What does that have to do with football? Heidi.
This was, I believe the game was, I think it was the Patriots and the Raiders, the California, or whatever they, Oakland Raiders. That part is foggy. I think that's it though. But anyway, I was sitting watching this game, this Heidi game. It turned out to be called the Heidi game, as I remember. And in the first half, they put on a commercial, and there was one of the commercials I wrote. There was one of the commercials I wrote, a 30-second commercial, and it was on national television
And during a big football game.
during a major football game.
And what year was this? How many years later do you think? Like,
I think this might have been like 71.
okay.
But I
Wow.
had heard from him, and I was out of Notre Dame. I had resigned because of the Dow CIA,
Yeah. And
thing.
the
And
war was still going on, the Vietnam.
war was still going on full,
Wow.
and so it appeared right there. It was on,
That's crazy.
and I couldn't believe it. It's on right in the middle of,
Yeah.
and
So he did do it then. He came.
and then
Yeah.
not only did he do it, he got the time.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I'm watching the game. I can't get over this. And there in the second half, it comes on again as a 30-second commercial.
Oh, wow.
Twice in the same game, it came on. That's my memory.
Wow. Yeah.
Never again. I didn't see any other commercials. I never saw that one again.
Mm-hmm.
I never got anything from him. Never heard from him. He had 40 scripts. Never
Yeah.
heard he did anything with other than that, And his motto was the family that prays together stays together. That was his motto for all those years.
Yeah.
But with this thing he was doing with me, the model that he had that I gave him was, the world doesn't have a prayer without yours.
Oh, that's
It's
good.
double entendre there, The
Yeah.
world doesn't have a prayer without yours.
Yeah.
So
Charlie, you should have gone into marketing. That's brilliant.
I could have done it. Sure, I would have made a fortune, Ellen. Anyway, I never heard from him anything else. I gave up on it. I heard that he had moved his offices to Albany.
Yeah.
And I tried to get in contact with them there, but never got any answers on the phone or on the letters, never. And that was that. And then he died, and there I was, right? So he was buried because he was a Holy Cross priest, but he was the eastern side of the Holy Cross priest, the eastern region.
Okay.
He was buried at Stonehill College, which is a Holy Cross college, about 5 miles from my house.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I went over the grave, and and it was very clear what all the Holy Cross graves are the same, a cross, and that's it, But
Mhm.
this one, you knew it was Pat Payton's because it had tons of rosaries on it that people left, But
Yeah.
anyway, I went over. But anyway, I saw where they were, Holy Cross, the school was having an anniversary mass of his death, So I thought, well, I'll go over there and just, it's proper, right, And so I went over, I don't know, and I think June 2nd or something, I went over there and I thought, well, as I got there, I thought could celebrate. So I walked back to the sacristy and introduced myself. I had priest clothes on, and with the Holy Cross priest, and they didn't really know me or anything. But anyway, I could celebrate it with them,
Nice. Yeah.
Pat Payton's Mass. And
Yeah.
after the Mass, I saw one priest there that I thought I knew from someplace. I thought maybe Notre Dame, but it wasn't. Anyway, after the mass, I came up and I said, "Hi, I'm Charlie McCarthy." And he said, "Oh yeah, I know." He says, "I'm Willie Raymond. We worked together back in '83." And I said, "Oh, when? What do we do?" And he said, "Back there in '83, I was a chaplain here at Stonehill College, and which is in Easton, Massachusetts. And you came and asked me if I would help put on
Oh,
a
Charlie,
talk."
can you lift your camera up? Your
Oh yeah, okay.
There you go. Yeah,
How's that?
that's
Okay.
good. Yeah, that's good.
I forgot. Uh, so Willie Raymond said to me, back in '83, you came here to Stonehill, and I was a chaplain here, and you asked me to help you put on a 1 day Catholic Peace Fellowship, not the not Pax Christi, Catholic Peace Fellowship conference,
Hmm.
and that you were going to have speakers and so forth and so on. And he said, I agreed to help and to make, to make the auditorium available and to have some food there and so forth. And I thought, and he did. He put on a very, very nice, and we got a big group. We got about 300 people,
Wow.
and really good, really good. And I think we got 300 people because the person who was our major speaker was Howard Zinn,
Oh,
and he
okay.
attracted people like nobody. Anyway, not only was he bright and not only could he write well, he was a super teacher,
Yeah.
absolutely ultra teacher. He knew how to present this stuff in ways that were riveting.
Cool.
And so we had him, and that's all. That was the end of it. I thanked Willie, and we left that day. Never saw him again till the altar.
Wow. Okay.
So we're talking, and that's years later, of course. This is 10, 15 years later.
Hmm.
And I said, well, what have you been doing? And, I'm out in California now at St. Monica's Church and so forth and so on, pastor. And he said, I'm also the executive director of Father Payton's Legacy. And I said, oh, so you have all this stuff and oh yeah. He said, I'm the executive director. And he said, I have it all there. And he said, we're working hard for his canonization. He said, and
Hmm.
I think we'll get him as a servant of God pretty soon. And and so forth. And so I said to him there, I said, Willie, I said, you know, many years ago, 1970, around there, Pat and I had this great deal going where I sent him scripts for 30-second Christian nonviolence commercials. And he said he was going to make, and I know he made one because I saw it twice on television, but I never heard from him again. He kind of disappeared. And I said, do you think you could find maybe a kinescope or something of those commercials? If he ever made more than one, or if even the one, I'd be happy because it was good.
Hmm.
He said, so let me go back. When I go back, I will go. And so he looked, and so I don't know, 6, 7 months passed, and I didn't hear anything. So I wrote to him, and he said, "Oh, I kind of let it go. I came out here and I did ask all the people, and no one ever heard of it."
Hmm.
He said, "But he said, I really do have a call into a fellow that worked here at that time, who's now retired, and see if he knows anything about what it was or where it's put or so forth." And then I don't know, a month later, I got a letter back from him, and he said, "I found 6 of them,
Wow.
6 that he made."
Oh, he not just scripts, but
Not just the script. He didn't find the script. He's found 6 that he made.
wow.
And I said, well, did so I wrote him and I said, could you send them out? And he said, oh, I'd be glad to. Yeah, I'll send you a copy. So I think we did tapes in those days, not,
Yeah.
and sure, he sent it out. And there it was, the one that was on television
Yeah.
and the others, which I never saw made. I never saw made.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever played them or not. But the one I saw on television, which is good, and
Hmm.
I could send it to you.
Yeah, well, the Boots to Booties one.
Boots to Booties is it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that
Boots
one.
to Booties.
But what about the
And
other ones? I'd like to see those too.
yeah, I think I got them here someplace. Yeah.
Maybe you could, maybe, I mean, maybe they ran, but you just, like, you didn't see them, you know? I mean,
That could very well be
yeah.
because by this time cable had come along and
Mm,
he was on a zillion cable stations,
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
besides the network stuff,
Yeah. So I
And
guess I would, yeah, go
and
ahead.
so that's I actually got the one that appears, Booties to Boots,
Yeah.
and it's good.
It is
It's
good.
good.
I've seen
I've
it.
got a lot of compliments on it. People have said you should have been a director, you should have been a writer, But that's all I got. One Booties to Boots. No,
Yeah.
no, I mean nothing.
I
Just
guess
to
I
get up.
kind of remembered that story differently because I thought maybe he wanted to do it, but he was working with the CIA and they were trying to co-opt, like, take over his Rosary Crusade, and then he
No,
shied away.
that's that. All that's true. All that's true. And that's a parallel story
Oh, okay.
that Rich Gribble, who was a Holy Cross priest, wrote his autobiography. And Rich is a marvelous, he's a professional historian,
Mhm.
a marvelous writer, a marvelous historian. And he wrote this autobiography because there were all these things that you just mentioned about how he was being used in the Family Rosary Crusade by the CIA and NSA and so forth, and he didn't know it. He was just being used, and he wrote this autobiography, and and when he was writing it, I asked him about this, and he told me. He said yes. He said Pat Payton not only didn't know it, he didn't believe it when he was told.
Oh, really?
He didn't believe it when he was told.
So,
And
so
he said
yeah.
the order and so forth, talk to him about you can't, because he literally there's if you look on his name and under what he did in the past, you'll see in the center of the square in Chile, they say there's 100,000 people playing the Rosary, or Argentina, or Russia, you know,
Yeah.
and
And so
because he himself.
why would the CIA want people to pray the Rosary? And this kind of brings us back to Lepanto a little
Oh,
bit, I
geez,
think.
I can't do that. Yeah. Well, let me. So what took place was that they couldn't get him to believe it, and he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't, recognize what was going on, how they would undermine him,
Okay.
using his thing for something else.
Yeah.
So what Rick Gribble told me was that finally Ted Hesburgh, who was president of the University of Notre Dame, met with him and gave him the details of how it was true. The
Oh,
details of what they were doing and where they were doing it, how they would do. I guess he convinced them, in other words,
okay.
and that was really a shocker to him because he seemed like someone who was street smart, but despite that, he was trusting.
Mm,
And so the way the CIA was using this was all through Latin America and South America, which most of the countries were largely impoverished and had a few elite families running the whole thing.
yeah.
We're talking the 50s and the 60s, 70s, huh? And and that they were bringing American business in like ATT and Anaconda Copper and so forth and so on, and the businesses were giving payback to them, but they were just squeezing the people for cheap labor and taking the minerals out of the land and all that sort of business there. And there were a lot of people at that time, at least since the time of Castro, which is 59,
Yeah.
a lot of consciousness of this going on by ordinary people,
Mm-hmm.
Che Guevara and other people. But the whole worlds of revolution were igniting. And in order for the governments to get unity, and the unity was, they're all Catholic, of course, huh?
Yeah.
And the unity came with, they'd bring people together and they'd have Pat down there saying the Rosary with them. Then they'd have him appearing with the president of the company, of the country, and
Uh,
the families that are elites and the militaries and so forth and so on. It all worked together nicely as a
giving
piece,
the powers
as a
that
piece.
be some credibility and
That's
leverage.
right. To give them, to give key and take their minds off of, and Pat, of course, he the Rosary was it. Huh? It was going to change everything, and never nothing in politics. He wasn't
Right.
interested in politics that way.
Yeah.
So they used them, and so yeah, that's how the story went.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I just yeah. And you gotta, the fact of the matter is that in those days, it's getting to be closer to that now as the church gets crazy institutionally in terms of conservatism. In those days, you couldn't even go into a diocese to speak or say mass unless you had the permission of the bishop in the diocese.
Oh.
And after Vatican II, that was generally set aside in regulations that if you were in good standing in your own diocese, and
Yeah.
you came and you showed them a card, um, celibate card, it's called, and just showed them, and that was enough. Huh? And
Hmm.
now it's back to you've got to get written permission from your own diocese to the bishop there, and it's turned out into
Hmm.
something, and it never was
Interesting. Yeah.
before the last 15 years or so, huh? It's
Yeah.
turned. So anyway, that's the story with Pat Payton, and he was
Yeah.
he he was a genuinely good person being used,
Yeah. Yeah.
really being used, and the least the way I got it was when this all became clear to him, clear, because he wouldn't believe it.
Hmm.
It really had a bad effect,
Wow.
All right. So what I want to mention here, okay, in light of what we're talking about, is this historical fact. Now you may remember I sent a cartoon out a few years ago, and it was a picture of a bedraggled kind of tough guy, and he's got his arms around a Catholic Christian minister, a Jewish rabbi, and a Muslim. And it's the title of the bedraggled guy that looks tough. The title on him is War, huh? And he's saying, "Without you, I could do nothing."
Ah, yeah.
I remember that. But anyway, why would the United States government be so interested in all Pat Payton was doing with the Rosary? And the Rosary is, I don't know. But this is a little piece of factual information that maybe most of your hearers would not know.
Okay.
Quote, the U.S. government commissioned and issued rosaries to soldiers in World War I. They did the same thing in World War II. These rosaries were made of metal pull chain and were sometimes called service rosaries by veterans.
Mm-hmm.
In the videos in the 1950s and 1960s, these rosaries were sometimes sold in shops. Next, during Operation Desert Storm, rosaries made of paracord, the strong cording used to hold parachutes during World War II, were sent to the troops by the U.S. government.
Well, they must be
Did you know
concerned
that?
with they must be concerned with their souls.
The government's big on religion.
They really are. Yeah.
The government is big on religion. And Alan, you're gone.
Oh no, I'm back. I think we're both on now.
We're both on now, but
Yeah.
I'm seeing nothing.
Oh, no. We can still see
There
you.
we are. There we are. Can I see? I can see you now.
Okay, great.
Okay. But the government's big on religion, huh?
Sure.
They try to take care of the souls of the student. No, no, it's a uniting factor. Remember, Constantine, for whatever he was a clever, clever politician.
Mm-hmm.
And he understood if there's one emperor, if there's one empire, there got to be one emperor and one God. And that's why he made Christianity the religion of the empire, or
Mm-hmm.
tolerated it. And Theodosius II made it the religion of the empire.
Yeah.
And so the Rosary was uniting things for Catholics, in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they weren't praying for the enemy. They were praying for themselves, their survival, do their job,
When
win, not break down mentally or physically or
Yeah, I've
whatever.
always thought of like when
Very private.
At Fatima, Mary doesn't say like pray to win. She says pray for peace. Like you're not like, you know what I mean? She's pray for an end to the war, not like to win.
And that's not George Zabilka, who was chaplain of the Hiroshima Nagasaki bomb crew, and who was a Catholic chaplain over in the South Pacific in the Second World War,
Mm-hmm.
said that he said many masses and many rosaries where the people prayed for peace, the people prayed for the well-being of the American or British servicemen, et cetera, et cetera. He said it never occurred to them, or to him for the most part, to pray for a Japanese person.
Yeah.
Never occurred, never, it was outside of imagination.
Yeah. You're not going to believe this, but on Etsy for $159, you can get a rosary where the beads are actually bullets.
You put that on the screen when we're talking here, when
Yeah,
you make the thing.
bullet rosary. And there's these other ones called like combat rosaries. And then there's a
I
t-shirt.
can't do that. You're great at the research. You know where to find it. I don't know how to do that.
Oh,
If
because,
I would have put that up if I saw it.
yeah, but this leads us to another question. And I know we've gone a long time, but this is really important. So there's another t-shirt on here you can set and you can get, and it says every bead is a bullet. Spiritual weapons for spiritual battles. 2 Corinthians 10:4. So another thing that people bring up when they're like, war can't be wrong, killing can't be wrong, because Saint Michael, who's right behind me, is holding a sword, and
But
he's
who
a
doesn't belong to you belongs to your relatives.
that's true. Well, they gave him to me. So I think people get confused, and then they talk about like in Revelation, like there's like a war in heaven, and like if the angels can fight, then obviously we're supposed to fight. Like they get this and to me, it's so obvious that's a spiritual analogy, but there's so much confusion about it. So how do we make sense of like Saint Michael, a warrior? If we're not allowed to fight, why is he allowed to fight? Do you want to open this can of worms right? I don't know.
Many years ago, it had to be 1991. I went to a place where there had been apparitions. A place in Spain called Garabandal up in the mountains.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. That's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and I went there because of a lot of reasons that we could talk about, but I went there, and these 4 little girls had
Mhm.
apparitions of Mary in 1991, the summer of 1991,
Mhm.
and June 18th to November 13th, and they're kind of spectacular. And there's movies of them, and
Mhm.
being, yeah, there's movies. But anyway, there's a in that set of apparitions, the first apparition they saw before the Marian apparition was an apparition of Saint Michael. And I got a picture of it here because they sell them in Garabandal, the pictures. They don't sell them anyplace else, but they sell them in Garabandal.
Mm-hmm.
Saint Michael has no Roman legion on, no swords,
No swords. Wow.
no swords, nothing. I'd say he's a young man, a little bit androgynous, huh?
Mm.
It looks, but a young man, a blue, not dress, but like cassock on, huh?
Yeah.
And that's it.
And this is what they saw?
This is what they saw of Saint Michael.
Hmm.
And they saw several times, many times.
Wow.
And I said to myself, when I first saw that, was reading about it, huh? And I read a lot about it. I said, this in itself is extraordinary, huh?
Mhm.
Really is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, Saint Michael as a Roman legionnaire with a Roman thing on and so forth is not in the Bible. It's not in the New Testament. It's not in Revelations, first of all. Secondly, when you say that the Revelations battle in heaven and so forth is spiritual, you're right. It's not that. But here's even more to the point. Battle in the book of Revelations takes place in a domain that is beyond human experience. Therefore, everything that's said is said in human language from human experience in order to analogously is the technical word, analogously to what is going on. How does Saint Michael battle Satan? Well, he can only battle Satan because he's of God, and angel means messenger, of course, in Greek. He can only battle Satan with love.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he battles Satan, with love, because that's how Jesus battled Satan.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, St. Michael with the Roman legionnaires costume and the sword and all that sort of business there, which is universal, by the way, is propaganda. It has no reference whatsoever in the in the book of Revelations.
Okay.
That is what is made up as a like a symbol, huh?
Yeah.
But no, St. Michael at Garabandal, that's more like it, a pleasant looking entity that comes from God and gives a message.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, children didn't fear.
Mm.
Even though it was an apparition, they didn't fear.
Wow, that's interesting.
It is, because I remember one time talking to a famous Trappist monk who's a friend of mine way back, and who had written all kinds of books on theology and spirituality and so forth and so on. And he was the real deal. He was the real deal. And we were talking about something or another, and he said, well, I know about these apparitions, he said, and I don't care about them. I don't have much judgment on them. But I'll tell you this, if Jesus ever appeared to me, I'd have a heart attack of fear. Just, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Fear of being there would give me a heart attack.
Yeah.
And that is the consciousness, isn't it? And so many people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's going to happen to me now? I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, really. That they're so far, there's a in the Orthodox world, there's a lot of things that Catholics should listen to,
Mm-hmm.
For example, on confession, they're always joking about the fact that Catholics have made confession into a place of good advice when it's supposed to be exclusively a place to experience mercy.
Okay.
It's a different, and they have a valid sacrament of confession,
It's become like counseling or something.
It's counseling. And remember, when Pope Francis came into office in the first month, he told the priests of the world, do not make confessions a place of terror. And I know that from my child, this fear of this, fear of that, fear,
Yeah.
all that. But anyway, another thing is, another thing is, besides that's confession is just off the point. Uh, uh, Now remember, the Orthodox liturgy is loaded from one end to the other with praise and everything else of Mary. They're absolutely Mary central. I'm far more than the Catholic liturgy, the Mass. Huh?
Okay. Wow.
Okay, way, way beyond anything the Catholics have in the Mass. I think the Catholics only have one mention of her in the Mass, as a matter of fact, now. And we're talking about dozens and dozens of mentions of Mary in the
Wow.
divine, in
Yeah.
the Orthodox liturgy. Well, anyway, so it's not that they don't believe in Mary, the Theotokos, God bearer,
Mhm.
No, all that is in place. But what they kind of joke about is the fact that Catholics have made Jesus, instead of a symbol of the God of love, into such a fearful symbol that they have to have Mary to take them to Jesus because they're so afraid of Jesus.
There might be something to that. Yeah.
There's a lot to that,
Yeah.
especially if you're Irish.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're Irish, the Irish have a saying something close to that where, oh, I never think of going to the Lord without Mary with me. Oh, God, no. But see, that's the fear, the God of fear versus the God of love, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard it said, like, when you're in trouble or you did something bad, like it's so much easier to go to your mom instead of your dad. Like,
Yes. Yeah, whatever it is,
yeah.
it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
And yet she's so nice, but she'll help us win battles and kill
yeah,
people.
this is the part. No, they are destroying the image of Mary with this. They are
Mm,
destroying the image of Mary. Mary is a helpmate. There is nothing in Mary other than peace and calm and helpfulness and love.
mhm,
And, and by throwing this thing in there, this Battle of Lepanto thing, they're undermining that whole image, as they did with Jesus,
mhm.
undermining the whole image of God as love and
Yeah,
making him into someone that uses violence against this group, partisan violence.
yeah,
He's not. No, they are destroying Mary's image by this Battle of Lepanto.
yeah.
Anyway, I said this, by the way, all kinds of places over decades. You're destroying the image of Mary. When images are hard to put back together,
Mhm.
once they become, they pass through a long history.
Yeah,
But Mary, I find, this is my own life, I find that Mary is an enormous source of consolation and help and peace. And yeah, really,
mhm.
for my whole life, you
Yeah.
know. I'm sure I got the feeling she's been there since before I was born.
Oh, yeah.
But but she's not like the Battle of Lepanto, and that's
Right.
that. If you can say this, or I can say it, I said, yeah. It kind of burns me up that these people, Battle Lepanto people, are just Warris people that want some kind of
Yeah.
validation for what they're holding because they can't find it in the Gospels.
Yeah.
It kind of burns me up that they're destroying this wonderful peace, maybe the only wonderful peace
Mhm.
the Catholics have for approaching God and getting peace,
Yep. She becomes such
approaching Jesus and getting peace.
wow.
As I approach my 20th year, everything's coming together. The boy's becoming a man. The dreams I've shaped are close at hand. Well, ready or not, world, here I come.